Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The crossbow bolt missed Jack Raiden's head by 3 centimeters. He didn't hear it coming, didn't know what the high whine meant until the quarrel buried itself in the rock face behind him, green fluid seeping from its tip and hissing where it touched stone. The mineral scanner fell from his hands. Down the ridge, maybe 200 meters away, mounted warriors in leather and bronze were circling something small and silver. Another scream split the air. Jack's protocol manual was clear. Observe indigenous conflicts from a distance. Never intervene. Document only. He'd memorized it during the 6-month journey here, repeated it every morning for the 3 weeks since landing. The Cal people of this world had their own laws, their own wars, their own way of dying. The child fell. She couldn't have been more than 7. Silver robes tangling around her legs as she scrambled backward up the slope. Bare feet slipping on loose shale. The warriors wore masks carved into snarling faces. Blue skin visible at their wrists and throats. 4 of them. Crossbows raised, bolts loaded. Jack saw his daughter's face. Not this child's face. Emily's face. Emily running through their backyard in Seattle. Silver dress streaming behind her, laughing. Emily in the hospital, tubes in her arms, asking when Daddy would take her home. Emily in a box in the ground while rain hammered the umbrella he couldn't feel himself holding. His legs moved. "Hey!" The word tore out of him as he sprinted down the ridge, boots sliding on loose rock. "Hey, leave her!" The lead warrior's mask turned toward him. Jack saw the crossbow pivot, saw the warrior's finger tighten. He dove. The world became a series of snapshots. The child's terrified eyes impossibly violet and wide. The bronze tips of 4 crossbow bolts converging on where she'd been standing, his shoulder hitting her waist, both of them tumbling into the shallow ravine behind the outcropping. Then fire exploded in his back. Not fire, worse than fire. The bolt had punched through his thermal jacket and buried itself between his ribs. Cold radiated from the wound, spreading through his chest cavity like liquid nitrogen in his veins. His lungs seized. His heart stuttered, stopped, restarted in a rhythm that felt wrong. Too slow, too heavy, as if each beat had to push through freezing mud. The child was crying against his chest, small hands gripping his jacket. Jack tried to speak. His jaw wouldn't move. The cold was in his throat now, his skull behind his eyes. He could still see the sky above them bleeding from orange to purple as this world's sun crept toward the horizon. But his vision was narrowing, sound growing distant and muffled. Hoofbeats, voices shouting in the harsh, clicking language he'd been studying, but couldn't yet speak. More hands pulling at him, pulling at the girl. Through dimming sight he saw her, a woman in bronze armor, face uncovered, skin the deep blue of sapphire with patterns of darker pigment along her cheekbones. She was screaming, not at the warriors, at him. Her expression wasn't gratitude or relief. It was rage. She wrenched the child from his arms with such force that the girl cried out, then held her at arm's length, examining her as if checking for contamination. The child reached back toward Jack, sobbing words he couldn't understand, but the woman turned away, barking orders. Jack's last coherent thought was confusion. He'd saved her. Why was she angry? Then the cold reached his brain, and the world became nothing. When consciousness flickered back, it was fleeting and fragmented. Stone ceiling, carved with spiraling patterns that hurt to look at. Voices speaking too fast, their words blurring together. Hands moving over his body. He couldn't feel them, but he could see their shadows on the periphery of his vision. Poison should have killed him in minutes. Frozen instead, somehow his biology. Captain Liara demands, "The child is unmarked, but the shame..." The words meant nothing. Everything was cold. So cold, his thoughts moved like glaciers, barely advancing, crushing everything beneath their weight. Darkness again. The throne hall was built into the mountain itself, walls of polished stone that drank the light from the floating braziers overhead. Jack lay on an altar. No, not an altar, something else. A platform carved with the same spiraling patterns as the ceiling. Channels cut into the stone that glowed with a faint blue luminescence. He could see all of this with perfect clarity. He could not move, could not blink, could not breathe more than once every few minutes. a shallow, insufficient gasp that barely stirred his chest. Figures moved around him. He recognized the armored woman, Liara, they'd called her. She stood with her back to him, addressing a circle of robed elders whose faces bore the deep lines and faded pigmentation of advanced age. "The human is alive," one of the elders spoke, voice like wind through hollow reeds. "The healers confirm his metabolism has adapted. The venom froze his biological processes instead of stopping them entirely. Then let him freeze permanently." Liara's voice was cold, controlled. "Seal him, store him, forget him." "You cannot." Another elder, this one female with elaborate patterns traced in silver on her skin. "He saved Princess Aya. Our law is absolute. A life debt must be honored." "He contaminated her!" Liara whirled, and Jack saw her face fully for the first time. Sharp features, eyes the color of amber, a thin scar cutting through her left eyebrow. His alien hands touched royal blood. The physicians examined her. "She is unharmed. Keep him alive. Let him sleep among our ancestors as the debt we can never cleanse." Silence settled over the hall like snow. Jack watched through eyes that would not close, feeling nothing, understanding everything. He was a problem they couldn't solve, a stain they couldn't wash away. Liara stared at the elder, then at Jack. Her expression was unreadable. "Fine," she said quietly. Then her voice dropped to something only he would have heard if he could truly hear. "If you wish to be remembered, human, you will be forever." She left. The elders dispersed. Healers approached with containers of the same glowing blue substance that filled the channels in the stone platform and began applying it to Jack's skin in thin layers. It burned cold where it touched him. He tried to scream. Nothing came out. One of the healers leaned close, an older male with kind eyes. "I am sorry," he whispered. "The preservation solution will keep your body stable, but it cannot give you peace. You will remain aware. Try to think of distant things. Try to let your mind drift away from your body. It is the only mercy we can offer." Then they encased him in glass, or something like glass. Grown from the platform itself, transparent and impossibly smooth. Jack's last clear view before his eyes stopped focusing properly was the vaulted ceiling above, and the shadows of the healers as they walked away, leaving him alone in the blue glow. He tried to drift, tried to think of Emily, of home, of anything but the crushing weight of paralyzed time. But awareness remained, sharp and cold as the poison in his veins. And in the doorway, hidden in shadow, a small figure watched. The child, Princess Aya. Her violet eyes were fixed on his frozen form, and her lips moved in words he couldn't hear but somehow understood. "Thank you, sleeping protector." Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months. Jack stopped trying to count. The Hall of Ancestors was vast and empty. Rows of platforms like his, but most of them held only bones wrapped in ceremonial cloth. He was the only living occupant, if living was the right word. The blue glow never changed. No sun reached this deep into the mountain. Time became a weight he carried without the ability to set down. Sometimes attendants came to check the preservation solution levels. They never looked at him directly. Sometimes Princess Aya visited, standing at a distance, speaking to him in her clicking language. He couldn't understand the words, but her tone was gentle, sad. Once she brought a drawing, a crude stick figure protecting a smaller stick figure from warriors with crossbows. She pressed it against the glass for a long moment, then carried it away. Captain Liara never came, until she did. It must have been months later, maybe a year, maybe more. Jack had lost the ability to track time with any accuracy, but he knew her footsteps, the particular rhythm of her boots on stone. She entered at night, when the attendants were gone, and the hall was silent except for the faint hum of the preservation systems. She stood 3 meters away, arms crossed, studying him. "They tell me you're conscious," she said abruptly, "that your mind is intact, trapped in that frozen shell. I don't know if that's true or if the healers are telling comfortable lies." She paused. "If you can hear me, I want you to understand something." She moved closer, her reflection appearing on the glass that encased him. "I hate you," she said clearly. "I hate that you saw my failure. I hate that you were faster, braver, more willing to die for a child who wasn't yours. I hate that every time I close my eyes, I see you running when I was still processing the attack. I hate that I will carry this debt until I die. And so will my sister, and so will Aya. And there is no possible repayment because you're neither truly dead nor truly alive. Her hand touched the glass, just for a moment. And I hate that the first time I watched the security recording of that day, trying to understand where I went wrong, I realized something. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. You didn't hesitate, not even for a heartbeat. You saw a child in danger and you ran. You didn't think about honor or duty or consequences. You just ran. She pulled her hand back. I've been a warrior my entire adult life. I've won 47 individual combats. I've led campaigns that saved thousands. And in the single moment that mattered most, I froze like a recruit seeing her first battle. She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Meanwhile, you're a geologist, a scientist. You analyze rocks for a living, and you were the warrior when it counted. She turned away, started to leave, then stopped. The rebellion is growing. Xander has taken 2 more provinces. The council thinks we might lose the capital within 5 years. When it falls, and it will fall, I wonder what they'll do with you. Display you as a trophy? Shatter your case? Let you finally die? She walked toward the exit, then paused once more in the doorway. If you can hear me, human, if there's any consciousness left in there, I'm sorry. For my failure. For your suffering. For all of it. Then she was gone, and Jack was alone again, with the weight of time and the memory of her hand against the glass. She came back 3 nights later, and then a week after that. And then it became a pattern, irregular, unpredictable, but constant. Sometimes she stood in silence. Sometimes she spoke about tactical decisions, political maneuvering, the slow decay of her civilization under the pressure of Xander's rebellion. Sometimes she spoke about her sister, the queen, Aya's mother, and the impossible burden of protecting them both. Your people must think we're savages, she said one night, pacing in front of his case. Crossbows and swords while you have ships that cross the stars. But our world is poor in the metals you need for advanced technology. What little we have goes to agriculture, medicine. We chose food over weapons. She stopped, pressed her forehead against the glass. Xander has the northern mines now, building a foundry. In another year, he'll have firearms. Crude but effective. And we'll still be fighting with bronze. Her voice dropped. Our scouts say he's moving on the eastern bridge at dawn. 2 days, maybe 3. Jack wanted to respond, wanted to tell her that his people had made the same choice once and survived it. Wanted to say something, anything, to ease the desperation in her voice. But he remained frozen, a silent witness to her unraveling. One night, months or years later, he truly lost count. She brought something with her. A small device, pre-fall human technology by the look of it, the casing battered and corroded. We found this in your crashed shuttle, she said, turning it over in her hands. Took our engineers 6 months to power it without destroying the data inside. She activated it. Light flickered. Then sound. A child's voice, high and sweet and painfully familiar. Daddy, come back alive. Mommy says your mission is dangerous, but you promised you'd come home for my birthday, and I'm making you a card, see? It has a rocket ship, and that's you inside, and... Liara shut it off. Her hand was shaking. That's why you ran. Her voice had gone soft, all the edges smoothed away. You saw her, your child, in Aya's face. She set the device down carefully, as if it might shatter. I researched your species. Your ship's records were badly damaged, but we recovered some personnel files. Emily Raiden, daughter, died 4 years before you left Earth. Cancer, 7 years old. She looked at him through the glass. You couldn't save her, so you saved ours. Silence filled the hall. Not empty silence, but thick with the weight of understanding. I've been angry at the wrong person, Liara said quietly. You didn't choose to shame me. You just saw a chance to not fail again. She touched the glass once more, her palm flat against it. I understand now. You're not a hero. You're just a father who got one more chance. She left the recording device beside his case. Sometimes on later visits, she would play it. Sometimes she would just sit in silence, her presence a strange comfort in the endless, frozen nothing. And once, just once, Jack felt something. Not physical sensation, that was long gone, but a flicker of warmth beneath Liara's palm on the glass, as if his body remembered what it meant to be touched with kindness. Decades passed. Jack knew because Liara aged. The first few gray hairs appeared in her dark hair. Then more. The lines around her eyes deepened. Her movements became slightly stiffer, her voice occasionally rougher in the mornings. She was still beautiful, still fierce, still carrying the weight of a civilization on her shoulders. The rebellion had become a war. Liara spoke of it in fragments. Lost provinces, failed counterattacks, refugees flooding the capital. Xander had firearms now, and artillery, and something close to explosive rockets. The technological gap was closing in the worst possible way. Aya wants to negotiate, Liara said one night. She looked older than her years now, hair more silver than black. She's grown into a fine queen, thoughtful, diplomatic, nothing like me. She sat down. She'd started bringing a chair years ago, no longer able to stand for their entire conversations. She remembers you, you know, calls you her sleeping protector. She asked me once why we don't try to wake you. Liara's smile was tired. I told her your sacrifice earned you peace. But that's a lie, isn't it? You have no peace. Just eternal, frozen awareness. Her hand found the glass again. That familiar gesture. I'm old, Jack Raiden. I don't know how many more years I have. The war has taken everything. My youth, my optimism, most of my friends. But I keep coming here because... She paused, searching for words. Because you're the only person who never judged me, never expected anything from me. You just existed, constant, unchanging. She stood slowly, joints creaking. Xander is planning a final assault on the capital. Our intelligence is clear. He means to storm the palace, execute the royal family, establish himself as emperor. It will happen within the year. She looked at him with eyes that held depths of weariness. And when it does, I want you to know something. You didn't save Aya from death that day. You saved her for 30 years of life, 30 years of being loved and learning to love, 30 years of meaning. That's not nothing. She left. The hall returned to silence. Jack thought about time, how humans measured it, how it felt different from inside and outside a body. 30 years. Emily would be 37 now if she'd lived. An adult, maybe married, maybe with children of her own. But Emily was gone, and Jack was here. And Aya was alive because of a single moment of reckless courage or foolish instinct or whatever name you gave to a father's desperation. 30 years of meaning. It had to be enough. It was all he had. The explosion shook the Hall of Ancestors. Jack felt it more than heard it, a vibration through stone that disrupted the preservation field, sending ripples of sensation through his frozen nerves. Pain. Actual pain, sharp and startling after decades of numbness. Another explosion, closer. The blue glow of his case flickered. Voices in the hall screaming, orders being shouted, the clash of metal on metal. The war had finally reached the palace, footsteps running. Someone burst into the hall, a young guard bleeding from a cut across his forehead. He looked around frantically, then ran out again, shouting for reinforcements. More explosions. The ceiling cracked. Dust fell in streams from above. Then she came. Liara, older but still fierce, armor dented and blood-streaked. Behind her, Princess Aya, no, Queen Aya now, wearing the royal circlet and silver robes, her face set in determined lines that echoed her aunt's. A handful of guards surrounded them, forming a defensive perimeter near the throne that had been installed at the hall's far end. This is where we make our stand, Liara's voice carried across the hall. If they want the queen, they come through us. Aunt, Aya started. No arguments. You stay behind me. If I fall, Captain Theron gets you to the eastern tunnels. Liara drew her sword, a beautiful weapon, blade darkened with age and use. But I don't intend to fall. The guards formed up. Jack could see them from his position. 8 warriors, all showing wounds, all wearing the exhaustion of a losing battle. Against how many? The sounds outside suggested dozens, maybe hundreds. The hall doors exploded inward. Xander came through the smoke like something from a nightmare. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing armor of stolen military design with crude firearms holstered at his hips. Behind him, a mass of rebels in mismatched gear, some with crossbows, others with rifles, all of them screaming victory. Liara! Sanders' voice boomed across the hall. Fitting that it ends here, among the dead. You belong with them, relics of a failed era. Come prove it, usurper. Liara's stance was textbook perfect. Weight balanced, sword ready. Sander grinned. Gladly. He drew a pistol instead of a blade. Aimed it at Liara, then pivoted and fired at Jack's case. The glass exploded. Or not glass. Whatever it was, it shattered into fragments that cascaded across the stone floor in a wave of tinkling sound. The preservation field collapsed. The blue glow died, and Jack Raiden gasped his first full breath in 50 years. His lungs burned, his heart hammered. Sensation flooded back into his body like boiling water through frozen pipes. Agonizing, overwhelming, impossible to process. He fell forward, muscles that hadn't moved in decades suddenly spasming back to life. His hands hit stone. The impact sent shockwaves of pain up his arms. Your corpse god awakens, Zander laughed. Watch it die again. He swung the pistol toward Jack. Liara moved, impossibly fast for her age, crossing the space between them in 3 strides, sword coming up to deflect the barrel. The shot went wide, ricocheting off the ceiling. Then the rebels surged forward. Jack's vision was still adjusting, his body remembering how to coordinate movement. He saw Liara fighting, fluid, precise, every motion economical and deadly. Saw 2 rebels fall, saw her take a cut across her shoulder, saw her guard closing ranks around Queen Aya, saw the archway above the entrance cracking from the explosions. Stay down, Liara snapped at him without looking. This is not your fight. Jack tried to speak. His throat was raw, vocal cords atrophied. He managed a rasp. Yes, it is, because he saw what they didn't. 50 years of studying this hall with nothing but a prisoner's eye for architecture. Every stone, every support, every structural weakness mapped and memorized. The rebels were massed at the entrance, their entire force packed into the bottleneck. And the archway above them was fracturing, held up by damaged keystone that would fail with the right pressure. He looked at the walls, saw the decorative braziers mounted on chains, heavy iron fixtures that could be pulled down. Saw the angle, saw the solution. They expect a charge, he rasped, voice growing stronger. Each word hurt like swallowing broken glass. The arch, bring it down, bury them. Liara spared him a glance, eyes widening in recognition, then understanding, then doubt. It's sacred ground, she said. The hall of... Jack pushed himself to his knees, grabbed her wrist with shaking hands. His eyes met hers, the first real eye contact in 50 years. So was her life. Liara stared at him, time compressed to a single held breath. Then she turned to the guards. Archers! The brazier chains! Shoot them down! Aim for the ceiling above the entrance. 3 guards with crossbows pivoted, aimed high. The bolts flew, chains snapped. The heavy braziers fell, iron crashing into the weakened keystone. The archway groaned. Xander looked up. His eyes widened. Back! Get back! The ceiling collapsed. Stone thundered down in a wave of destruction. Tons of rock and mortar crashing into the entrance tunnel. Rebels screamed, sounds that cut off abruptly beneath the avalanche. Dust exploded outward, a choking cloud that filled half the hall. Silence fell, broken only by the settling of debris and the ragged breathing of survivors. Jack sagged forward, every muscle trembling. His body wasn't ready for this, wasn't ready for any of this. Dark spots swam across his vision. His heart was beating too fast, too hard, trying to make up for 50 years of near stillness. Through the dust, he heard footsteps, saw Liara approaching, sword still in hand, blood dripping from her wounded shoulder. She looked at him. Really looked, like she was seeing him for the first time. Then she removed her sword belt, knelt down, laid the blade at his feet. He covered our future from poisoned arrows, she said, voice carrying to every corner of the hall. Now we'll guard him until he can stand again. Behind her, one by one, the royal guard knelt. Armor rang against stone like rainfall. Queen Aya came forward, tears streaming down her face. She knelt too, royal circlet catching the dim light. You saved me twice, she said softly. Once from arrows, once from dishonor, because without you, we would have fallen today. How do we repay a debt doubled? Jack tried to answer. His voice failed. His vision was narrowing, body shutting down from the shock of sudden awakening after decades of suspension. He was dying. He could feel it. Systems failing one by one. Liara's hand found his. Warm. Real. The first human touch he'd felt since before the poison. Her fingers laced through his. Silent contract. Wordless promise. "Stay," she whispered. Just that one word. Desperate. Urgent. He wanted to. God, he wanted to. But his body had other plans. The darkness came up fast, swallowing everything. His last sight was sunlight cutting through the broken ceiling. The first natural light he'd seen in 50 years. Golden and impossibly beautiful. His last thought was, I did it. I saved her. Again. Then nothing. Awareness returned in fragments. Voices first. Liara arguing with someone, her tone sharp with frustration. Don't care what the protocols say. He saved the queen twice. He deserves. His biology is deteriorating, Captain. The preservation process was never meant to be reversed. His cells are shutting down. Then fix them. We don't know how. We're not experts in human physiology. We barely kept him stable for 50 years as it is. Silence. Then Liara's voice quieter. Is he conscious? Yes, the neural pathways are still active. Can he hear me? Probably. Footsteps. A hand on his. Liara's hand. He knew it without seeing. Jack. She'd never used his name before. I need you to stay. Just a little longer. The rebellion is broken but not finished. Xander escaped in the chaos. His forces are scattered but they'll regroup. We need time to rebuild, to stabilize. Her hand tightened on his. And selfishly, I need to know you're all right. I spent 50 years talking to a frozen man. Now that you're finally awake, you can't just leave. Jack tried to move his hand. Manage the smallest squeeze. Her breath caught. You felt that? Another squeeze. You stubborn bastard. She laughed, actually laughed. A sound he'd almost never heard from her. Fine. Fight. I'll fight too. The healers say there might be something in your ship's medical database. Information about human cellular repair. We're searching the wreckage now. Days blurred past. Maybe weeks. Jack floated in a haze of semi-consciousness, aware but disconnected. Sometimes he heard Liara reading to him. Tactical reports, historical texts. Once even a child's story that made her voice go soft and nostalgic. Sometimes Queen Aya visited, telling him about the reconstruction efforts, the refugees returning, the slow process of peace. Sometimes he heard the healers arguing, their voices tense with frustration. Then one day clarity returned, like a door opening. Jack opened his eyes. He was in a different room, smaller, warmer, with actual sunlight streaming through a window. Medical equipment surrounded his bed, some of it clearly adapted from his ship's supplies. And beside him, asleep in a chair, head pillowed on her arms on the edge of his bed, was Liara. She looked exhausted. Gray hair loose around her shoulders instead of bound back. Facial lines deeper than he remembered. But peaceful in sleep, the constant vigilance finally relaxed. Jack moved his hand. It responded. Slowly, shakily, but it moved. He touched her hair. She woke instantly, hand going to where her sword should be but wasn't. Then she saw him, saw his open eyes, his deliberate movement, and froze. Hi, Jack said. His voice was rough but functional. Liara stared. Then she grabbed his hand with both of hers and pressed it to her forehead, breathing hard. You stupid, stubborn, impossible human, she said. Each word shook slightly. Do you have any idea? The healers said you had days left, maybe hours. Your cellular structure was collapsing. And then yesterday it just stopped, started reversing. They think your ship's medical database had the right protocols after all. How long? Jack asked. Since the battle? 6 weeks. She lifted her head, met his eyes. Since you saved Aya the first time? 50 years, 3 months, 18 days. Jack absorbed that. You counted. I had nothing but time. She stood, moved to pour water from a pitcher, brought it to him, helped him drink. The water tasted strange, wrong minerals, wrong pH, but it was wet and cold and wonderful. The rebellion? He asked. Scattered. Xander is in hiding. We're hunting him, but it's slow work. She sat back down. The people are calling you the Twice Guardian. There are songs already. Terrible songs mostly, but enthusiastic. Jack almost smiled. And you? What do you call me? Liara was quiet for a moment. I call you the man who taught me what courage really means. Not the absence of fear, not tactical brilliance, just seeing something that needs doing and doing it. Consequences be damned. I was terrified, Jack said. Both times. I know. That's what makes it courage. She reached out, hesitated, then touched his face, tentative, as if checking he was real. I've been angry at you for 50 years, grateful, guilty, dozens of other things I don't have words for. But mostly, she paused. Mostly I've been talking to you. And now that you can finally answer back, I don't know what to say. You could start with your name, Jack said. Your full name. I only ever heard Captain Liara. Liara Vex Nithar, Captain of the Royal Guard, Aunt to the Queen, Keeper of debts I can never repay. She smiled. A real smile, not the bitter ones from before. And apparently caretaker to resurrected humans. I like that last one, Jack said. His eyelids were getting heavy again. Stay? Where else would I go? She settled back into the chair, her hand finding his. Rest, Jack Raiden. I'll be here when you wake. He believed her. Recovery was slow and painful and punctuated by setbacks. Jack's body had to relearn everything. Walking, fine motor control, regulating temperature, even digesting food properly. The healers worked around the clock, combining their knowledge of KO physiology with the protocols from his ship's medical database to create something hybrid and experimental. Liara was there through all of it. She helped him stand when his legs trembled and threatened to give out. She argued with the healers when they wanted to move too fast or too slow. She read to him during the bad days when infection set in, a consequence of 50 years in suspension, and his fever spiked so high he barely knew where he was. You saved the Queen twice, she told him during one of those fever dreams, her voice the only anchor to reality. You're not allowed to die from something as mundane as an infection. That's not how heroes go. Not a hero, Jack mumbled. Just a father. You're both. Now shut up and let the medicine work. He did. It did. 3 months after waking, Jack took his first independent steps, 10 meters across the medical room and back. Liara watched from the doorway, arms crossed, trying to look stern. But he saw her swipe at her eyes when she thought he wasn't looking. 4 months in, he could walk the palace corridors. Queen Aya insisted on giving him a tour personally, showing him the reconstruction efforts. The throne hall was still closed, too damaged to repair safely, but the rest of the palace was slowly coming back to life. We're building a new hall, Aya said as they walked. She was in her late 30s now, bearing the weight of leadership with grace. The architects want to incorporate elements from the old one, to remember what we lost, what we learned. What did you learn? Jack asked. Aya stopped, turned to face him. That honor isn't about never needing help. It's about accepting help with grace when it's offered, and offering help without counting the cost. She smiled. You taught us that, both times. She led him to a window overlooking the city. Below, Jack could see people in the streets, rebuilding, trading, living, children playing in a square that had been a battlefield weeks ago. Xander is still out there, Aya said quietly. Our scouts report he's gathering forces in the mountains, planning something. Liara thinks it's a final assault, one last attempt to take the throne before his support completely collapses. Jack looked at her. You're afraid, terrified. She said it simply, without shame. But I learned from watching you that fear doesn't mean inaction. It just means you understand the stakes. The attack came on a cold morning when frost covered the palace walls. Jack was in the training yard, still building his strength back, working through basic exercises that left him exhausted. When the alarm bells rang, Liara appeared in the doorway, already armored, sword at her hip. He's here. Xander's forces, smaller than before but better armed. They're coming up the eastern approach. She crossed to him, grabbed his shoulders. You stay in the secured wing with the Queen. Non-negotiable. Liara, no. Her eyes were hard. You've given enough. I won't lose you to some desperate final stand by a man who's already lost. She started to leave. Jack caught her arm. Be careful, he said. Please. Her expression softened. She touched his face. That gesture had become familiar between them, a checking of reality, a confirmation of presence. Always am, Then she was gone, boots ringing on stone. Jack stood there for maybe 10 seconds. Then he ignored every instruction she'd given him and headed for the armory. The guards tried to stop him. "Sir, Captain Liara's orders are sensible and protective, and I'm ignoring them." Jack grabbed a crossbow. He'd been practicing with one during recovery, found he had a decent eye for it. "I'm not a warrior, but I can shoot straight, and I'm not hiding while people die for me." He made it to the eastern wall before anyone could organize a proper response to drag him back. From there, he could see the battle developing below. Xander's forces, maybe 200 fighters, were pushing through the outer defenses. They had explosives, firearms, and the desperation of people with nothing left to lose. Liara was in the thick of it, her silver-streaked hair visible even from this distance. She fought like something beyond human, sword flowing through forms that seemed more like dance than combat. But she was outnumbered. They all were. Jack found a firing position, loaded the crossbow, and started picking targets. He wasn't skilled enough for moving targets at range, but he could hit the ones using cover to reload their rifles. Support fire, disruption. Every rebel he forced into cover was one not shooting at Liara's people. The battle raged for an hour, then two. Jack's arms ached from the unfamiliar strain, his still recovering body screaming protest. But he kept loading, aiming, firing, kept making a difference in the only way he knew how. Then he saw Xander. The rebel leader had broken through the inner line, was charging toward the palace entrance with a core group of his best fighters, heading straight for the queen. Liara saw it too, pivoted away from her current engagement, and sprinted to intercept. She was going to be too late. Jack could see the angles, the timing. Xander would reach the entrance 3 seconds before Liara could get there. 3 seconds for him to get inside, to reach Aya, to end everything. Jack didn't think, just moved. He jumped down from the wall, a 4-meter drop that would have killed him months ago, but now only drove the air from his lungs and sent pain shooting through his legs. He stumbled, caught himself, started running. His body protested. His lungs burned. His vision blurred at the edges. But he could see Xander ahead, could see the palace entrance, could see... He threw himself into Xander's path. The collision sent both of them sprawling. Xander recovered first. Of course he did. He was a trained warrior, and Jack was a geologist who'd spent 50 years frozen. The rebel leader's fist crashed into Jack's jaw. Stars exploded across his vision. Another punch to his ribs drove the air from his lungs. "You!" Xander snarled, grabbing Jack by the throat. "The corpse god! Still interfering! Still!" Liara's sword took him through the shoulder. Xander screamed, released Jack, spun away. Liara was on him immediately, her blade moving too fast to follow. Around them, the royal guard closed in, cutting off Xander's fighters from their leader. Jack lay on the ground, gasping, watching the end of it. Xander fought well. Even wounded, he was dangerous. But Liara was better. Had always been better. She disarmed him with a move that left his sword spinning through the air, then put her blade to his throat. "Yield," she said, not shouting, barely above speaking volume. Xander looked at her, then at Jack, still on the ground, then back to Liara. He spat blood. "To a human's lapdog? Never. Then die proud." Liara's blade didn't waver. "Wait." Jack forced himself up to his knees, every muscle screaming. "Don't kill him." Liara glanced at him, eyes wide. "He tried to murder the queen. Twice. He's led a rebellion that killed thousands." "I know." Jack struggled to his feet, swaying. "But if you execute him, you make him a martyr. His cause lives on. If you imprison him, put him on trial, let your people see justice done properly, not vengeance. You show them a different way. He doesn't deserve mercy. I'm not asking for mercy. I'm asking for law, for the thing that separates you from him." Jack looked at Xander, then back to Liara. "You told me once that you carry debts you can never cleanse. Don't add this one. Don't let him turn you into something you'll hate." Silence stretched across the battlefield. Fighters on both sides had stopped, watching. Liara's hand trembled slightly on her sword. Then slowly she lowered it. "Captain Theron," she called. "Take him into custody, full restraints. He goes to the high security cells to await trial." Guards moved forward. Xander stared at Jack with something between hatred and confusion. "Why?" he rasped. "Why spare me?" Jack met his eyes. "Because I've seen what revenge looks like, And it never ends. Someone has to break the cycle. They dragged Xander away. The remaining rebels, seeing their leader captured, began surrendering. The battle was over. Liara stood there, sword still in hand, looking at Jack. "You disobeyed my orders," she said. "Yes. Put yourself in danger when I specifically told you to stay safe. Yes. Took a fall that could have killed you and got the hell beaten out of you for your trouble. Also, yes." She sheathed her sword, crossed to him, and pulled him into a crushing embrace. Jack's ribs, probably cracked from Xander's punches, protested loudly. He didn't care. "You impossible, stubborn, beautiful idiot," she whispered against his shoulder. "Don't you ever do that again." "Can't promise that." "I know." She pulled back enough to look at him. Her face was smudged with soot and blood, her eyes bright with tears she wouldn't let fall. "That's why I—" She stopped. "Why you what?" Liara hesitated. Then she kissed him. It was brief, fierce, tasting of blood and smoke, and 50 years of words unspoken. When she pulled away, her eyes were wide, as if she'd surprised herself. "That's why I can't lose you," she finished quietly. Jack touched his split lip, grinning despite the pain. "You should have led with that. Would have saved me a lot of confusion over the last few months. I'm not good at this. At feelings. She gestured helplessly. "I'm a warrior. I know tactics and duty and honor. Not this." "Neither do I." Jack took her hand. "But we can figure it out, if you want to." "I want to." She squeezed his hand. "For however long we have." Around them, the palace guards were cheering. Queen Aya appeared in the entrance, relief flooding her face when she saw them both alive. The city bells began ringing, not alarm this time, but celebration. The war was over. Finally, truly over. The trial took months. Xander was given every opportunity to defend himself, to present his grievances, to explain why rebellion had seemed necessary. Some of his complaints were valid. The outer provinces had been neglected, resources concentrated in the capital. Aya listened to all of it, then announced a series of reforms. Xander was sentenced to life imprisonment, not execution. It set a precedent. The rule of law over the rule of revenge. Jack watched it all from the gallery, Liara beside him. She'd resigned her commission, said she'd done enough fighting for one lifetime, wanted to try peace for a change. The Queen had accepted reluctantly, then appointed her as chief diplomatic advisor. "Never thought I'd see you in politics," Jack said, as they left the trial hall after the sentencing. "Never thought I'd see you at all, after that first day." Lyra linked her arm through his, another gesture that had become natural between them. Life is full of surprises. They walked through the rebuilt city. It looked different than it had during the war. Cleaner, brighter, with new construction everywhere. Children played in streets that had been battlefields. Vendors sold food in markets that had been ruins. "What will you do now?" Liara asked. "Your ship is beyond repair, but the council could probably arrange transport to the nearest human colony. It would take years, but—" "I'm not leaving," Jack said. Liara stopped walking. "What?" "I'm not leaving." He faced her. "I spent 50 years frozen, wishing I could move, could speak, could do anything but exist. Now I can, and the person I want to exist with is you. Jack, you can't just— your people, your world. Earth is a memory. Emily is gone. My old life ended the moment I ran down that ridge." He took both her hands. "This is my life now. Here, with you, if you'll have me." Liara stared at him. Then she laughed. That genuine laugh he'd learned to treasure. "You saved the Queen twice, helped end a rebellion, and convinced me to spare my greatest enemy. Do you think I'm going to say no to you now?" "I was hoping not." She kissed him again. Longer this time, without the smoke and blood. Just warmth and presence and the promise of actual time together. When they broke apart, she was smiling. "You realize you're going to have to learn proper Kyle formally. Your grammar is terrible. I've had a bad teacher, someone who mostly talked at me while I couldn't respond." "Fair point." She started walking again, pulling him along. "We should visit the Hall of Ancestors. They've started rebuilding it. The architects want to put in a memorial to the day the ceiling fell. They're asking for input. Will they mention the frozen geologist? They're calling you the Twice Guardian. There's going to be a statue." She grinned at his expression. "Don't worry. I told them to make sure it captures your best side, which is the side that runs toward danger to save children, even when it's incredibly stupid to do so. They reached the memorial site. Workers were clearing debris, laying new foundations. One of them recognized Liara and called out a greeting. She waved back. "You know what I realized?" Liara said quietly, looking at the ruins. "The day you saved Aya the first time, I thought you'd shamed us, made us look weak, proved we couldn't protect our own." She turned to him. "But you didn't prove we were weak. You proved that strength comes in unexpected forms, that a geologist with no training could be braver than a trained warrior, because bravery isn't about skill, it's about choice." "You made a brave choice too," Jack said. "Sparing Xander, starting reforms, all of it. I learned from watching you." She touched his face. That checking gesture, that confirmation. "For 50 years I watched you, frozen and suffering, and you never stopped being present, never stopped existing with dignity. That's a kind of courage I'd never seen before." Jack pulled her close. "I'm glad I exist now, in a way that can respond when you touch me." "Me too." She rested her head against his shoulder. "Though I do miss being able to complain about you without you arguing back. I'm sure you'll find new things to complain about." "Undoubtedly." They stood there as the sun set, this world's sun, redder and dimmer than Earth's, but beautiful in its own way. Around them the city lived and breathed and moved forward. Children laughed. Vendors called out specials. Somewhere nearby, someone was singing. Jack thought about time again, how he'd lost 50 years, how he'd gained this moment. It was a fair trade. The formal ceremony happened 6 months later in the newly rebuilt Hall of Ancestors. The architects had incorporated elements from the old design, the vaulted ceiling, the carved walls, but added something new. Where Jack's suspension case had stood, there was now a memorial, 2 figures carved in stone, one kneeling with arms outstretched to protect a child, the other standing guard with sword raised. The inscription read, "Greater love hath no one than to give their life for another." Here stood the twice guardian, who gave his life twice, once to poison, once to time, that a child might live. Queen Aya presided over the dedication. She'd grown into her role completely now, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd that filled the hall. "We gather today to remember sacrifice," she said, "to honor the man who taught us that heroism requires no titles, no training, no preparation, only the willingness to act when action is needed." She gestured to Jack, standing beside Liara near the memorial. "Jack Raiden has asked that we also remember those who served and sacrificed during the rebellion, the guards who fell defending this palace, the civilians who sheltered refugees, the healers who worked without rest, every act of courage, large or small, that brought us to this moment of peace." Applause filled the hall. Jack felt uncomfortable with the attention, still not used to being the center of anything. Liara squeezed his hand. "Breathe," she whispered. "It'll be over soon. Promise? I promise you'll get used to it eventually." "That's not the same thing," she smiled. "No, but it's the truth." The ceremony continued. Honors were bestowed. Names were read. A long list of the fallen, each one given a moment of silence. Jack listened to them all, remembering the cost. The real cost, not just his own frozen years, but the lives cut short, the families broken, the potential lost. When it ended, people approached him, thanking him, asking for his story, wanting to touch the man who'd become legend. Liara ran interference, politely but firmly keeping the crowd from overwhelming him. Eventually, they escaped to the palace gardens, finding a quiet corner near a fountain. "I hate crowds," Jack said, sitting heavily on a bench. "I noticed." Liara sat beside him. "Unfortunately, you're famous now. It comes with the territory. Can I be unfamous?" "Not how it works." She leaned against him. "But it will calm down. Eventually. Probably." "Your confidence is inspiring." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to water and distant conversations. The garden was beautiful. Kyle plants in shades of blue and purple, arranged in patterns that followed some aesthetic Jack didn't quite understand, but appreciated anyway. "I was thinking," Liara said eventually, "about the future." "What about it?" "We've spent so much time focused on survival. Yours, mine, the kingdoms. But now," she paused, "now we actually have a future. Time stretching out ahead of us. And I don't know what to do with it. Jack turned to look at her. What do you want to do with it? I don't know. She met his eyes. I've been a warrior my entire life, defined myself by duty and honor and service. But I'm not that anymore. I'm just Liara, and I don't know who that is. I know who she is, Jack said quietly. She's the woman who visited a frozen man for 50 years because she couldn't let go of her failure. She's the warrior who learned mercy. She's the aunt who loves her niece enough to die for her. She's my... He paused. What are you exactly? We never defined it. Liara considered. In Kale culture, we have a word. Kainash. It means soul companion. Someone who sees you completely, all your flaws and strengths, and chooses to stand beside you anyway. I like that word. Me too. She kissed his cheek. You're my Kainash, Jack Raden. The man who made me remember what it meant to be human, even though I'm not human. The feeling's mutual. Jack wrapped an arm around her. And as for the future, we'll figure it out. Together. No rush. No rush, she agreed. We have time now. Time. The thing Jack had been frozen outside of. The thing Liara had spent 50 years wishing away during her vigil. Now they had it in abundance, stretching forward into unknown possibility. It was terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. 5 years passed. Jack and Liara built a life that surprised them both. She taught at the military academy, not combat, but strategy and ethics. He consulted on infrastructure projects, applying geology expertise to help the kingdom develop resources sustainably. They bought a small house in the city, far from the palace, but close to the markets where Liara liked to shop. They argued about small things, whose turn it was to cook, whether the windows should be open at night, how to arrange furniture. They laughed about nothing at all. They held each other during storms when Liara's old wounds ached, and Jack's long frozen nerves sent phantom pains through his body. Queen Aya visited regularly, bringing news of the kingdom. Trade was expanding. The reforms were working. The outer provinces were thriving. Xander remained imprisoned, but his followers had mostly reintegrated into society, finding ways to contribute rather than destroy. You changed us, Aya said during one visit, sitting in their modest living room. Not just me, all of us. You showed us a different way to be strong. I just ran down a hill, Jack said. Twice, Liara added. Don't sell yourself short. Twice, Aya agreed. And both times, you changed everything. After she left, Jack and Liara sat on their small balcony, watching the city lights. This had become their evening ritual, tea in silence and presence. Do you miss Earth? Liara asked. Jack thought about it. I miss some things. Coffee, the ocean, my daughter's laugh. He paused. But Emily's been gone for longer than she was alive now. And this? He gestured to the city, to her, to the life they'd built. This is home? Good, Liara set her tea down, took his hand. Because I need to tell you something. Her tone made him nervous. What? The healers confirmed it yesterday. I'm pregnant. Jack stared at her. The words didn't process at first. Then they did, and his breath caught. How? I thought interspecies reproduction shouldn't be. The healers think it has something to do with your time in suspension. The preservation process altered your cellular structure in ways that made it compatible. She watched his face anxiously. Do you want? Jack kissed her, pulled back, kissed her again. Yes, he said. Yes, yes. Liara laughed, relief flooding her features. Good, because I was terrified that it would remind you too much of Emily. It does. Jack cupped her face gently. And that's okay. Emily was the best thing in my first life. This child will be the best thing in my second life. I can hold both truths. She leaned into his touch. We're going to have a half-human, half-Kale child. There's no precedent for this. No idea what health complications might arise, what they'll look like, how they'll be treated. We'll figure it out. Jack pulled her close. Like we figured out everything else. Together. They sat there as night deepened, holding each other, thinking about the future. About a child who would carry the legacy of two worlds. About the weight of that responsibility and the joy of that possibility. "What should we name them?" Liara asked eventually. "If it's a girl," Jack said slowly, "I'd like to call her Emily Aya, for both the children who changed my life." Liara was quiet for a long moment. Then, "And if it's a boy?" "Your choice. I don't have strong feelings." "Raiden," Liara said, "after his father, who ran toward danger twice to save people he didn't know." "I knew you. The second time. The first time you didn't." She kissed his temple. "That's what made it courageous." The child was born on a spring morning when the gardens were in full bloom. A girl, blue-skinned like her mother but with human facial features, eyes that shifted between violet and brown depending on the light. Healthy, the healers said. Strong. A medical miracle none of them fully understood. They named her Emily Aya Raiden Vex, and she screamed with healthy lungs when she first entered the world. Jack held her, this tiny, impossible blend of two species, and felt something break open inside his chest. All the frozen years, all the pain and loss and impossible survival. It led here, to this moment, to this child who should not exist but did. "Hello, little one," he whispered. "Welcome to a complicated world." Emily, they'd call her M, Liara had already decided, wrapped her tiny hand around his finger and held on tight. Queen Aya visited later that day, bringing gifts and tears. "She's beautiful," the queen said, peering at the sleeping infant. "And she has your stubbornness. I can tell already." "How can you possibly know that?" Liara asked from the bed, exhausted but smiling. "She came 3 weeks early, surprised all the healers, and decided to arrive during the busiest council session of the year. Definitely Jack's daughter." They laughed. Em slept through it, peaceful in her father's arms. Over the following months, Jack and Liara learned the particular chaos of new parenthood. Sleepless nights, constant feedings, the terror of every small cough or unusual cry, but also the wonder of watching a person develop. First smiles, first laughs, first attempts at gripping toys. Em was different from fully Kale children. Her development followed human patterns more than Kale ones, growing faster in some ways, slower in others. The healers took careful notes, learning as they went. The city watched with fascination as this child of two worlds grew. Some objected, called it unnatural, wrong, but Queen Aya made her position clear. "This child is a citizen of our kingdom, under our protection. Anyone who harms her or her family answers to the crown." The objections quieted. Mostly. Em was 2 years old when trouble found them again. Jack was at home with her, Liara teaching at the academy, when the door burst open. 3 figures in dark clothes, faces covered. One grabbed Jack. Another lunged for Em. Jack's reflexes kicked in. He twisted, broke free, threw himself between Em and the attackers, felt a blade slice across his arm, heard Em screaming, saw the lead attacker raise a club. Then Liara was there. She'd been on her way home when a neighbor saw the intrusion and sent word. She came through the door like a storm, moving with the precision and fury of 30 years of combat training. 2 attackers went down in seconds. The third tried to run. He didn't make it. Liara stood over them, breathing hard, sword red with blood. Her eyes were wild, dangerous. Then she saw Jack bleeding, Em crying in his arms, and something shifted in her expression. She cleaned her blade mechanically, sheathed it, turned to the bodies. "They have tattoos, former Xander supporters. They must have thought," her voice cracked, "they thought they could hurt us by taking her." Jack pressed his hand to the wound on his arm, deep but not life-threatening. "We need to leave the city, go somewhere quieter, safer." "No." Liara's voice was flat, cold. "We don't run. We make them remember why attacking this family is a fatal mistake. Liara, they came into our home, Jack, tried to take our daughter, to hurt you." She looked at him, eyes blazing. "I won't let that stand. I can't." The city guard arrived, took the survivors, 1 dead, 2 unconscious, into custody. The investigation revealed a small cell of extremists, remnants of the rebellion who thought they could strike at the kingdom by targeting the Twice Guardian's family. Queen Aya had them all arrested, put on trial. This time the sentences were harsh, not execution, but permanent exile to the wasteland provinces. A message. The kingdom protected its own, but the damage was done. Jack and Liara's sense of safety was shattered. Every knock at the door made them tense. Every stranger in the market was a potential threat. M picked up on their fear, became clingy and nervous. "This isn't sustainable," Jack said one night after M had finally fallen asleep following another nightmare. "We can't live like this. She can't grow up like this." Liara sat at the table, head in her hands. "What do you suggest?" "Aya offered us property outside the city, in the hills, remote, defensible, with guards if we want them." He sat across from her. "Maybe we should take it." "That feels like running. It feels like protecting our family." Jack reached across, took her hand. "We've fought enough, Liara. Both of us. Maybe it's time to just live quietly." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, we'll go. But we maintain a residence here too. I won't be driven completely from the city by a handful of extremists." "Deal." They moved within the month. The house in the hills was simple but spacious. Stone walls, a garden, a clear view of the approaches. Far enough from the city for privacy, close enough for regular visits. Queen Aya assigned 2 guards, but they stayed in a separate building and kept their distance unless called. M flourished there. Room to run, space to explore, away from the stares and whispers that had followed them in the city. She was 4 now, speaking a mix of Kyle and human words, her skin shifting slightly in tone depending on temperature. An unexpected hybrid trait that the healers found fascinating. Jack taught her about rocks. Liara taught her to stand her ground. Both taught her to be kind, to be brave, to understand that being different was not the same as being wrong. "Why is my skin blue but yours isn't?" M asked one day, sitting in the garden with Jack. "Because you're half kale and half human," Jack explained. "You got your mother's skin color and my stubborn personality." "What's stubborn?" "It means you don't give up easily, even when things are hard." M considered this. "Like when you ran to save Mommy?" Jack blinked. "Your mother told you that story?" "She tells me all the time. Says you were very stubborn to run at warriors with crossbows when you're just a rock person." Jack laughed. "Rock person? I like that." M climbed into his lap. "Will I be stubborn too?" "Probably. Your mother and I are both pretty stubborn. You don't have much choice." "Good." M settled against his chest. "I want to be like you and Mommy. Brave and stubborn and strong." Jack held her close, feeling the particular weight of parenting, the responsibility of shaping a person who would carry both his legacy and Liara's into a future he couldn't predict. "You'll be your own person," he said quietly. "Better than both of us combined." The years continued their forward march. M grew, started school, a small institution in a nearby village that welcomed her despite her hybrid nature. Made friends, got into fights, defending smaller children from bullies, a trait that made Liara simultaneously proud and exasperated. "She's just like you," Jack said after one incident, where M had bloodied another child's nose for mocking a classmate's stutter. "She's like both of us," Liara corrected. "She has your protective instinct and my inability to walk away from injustice." Is that a good combination? It's a dangerous one, but good. Probably. Jack's parents came to visit. No, not his parents. He had to remind himself. His parents were long dead back on Earth. These were Liara's parents, come from the northern provinces to meet their granddaughter for the first time. It was awkward. They were traditional, uncomfortable with their daughter's choice of partner. But M won them over, charming and precocious and utterly certain of her place in the world. By the end of the visit, Liara's mother was teaching him traditional songs, and her father was showing her how to carve wood. "They like her," Liara said, surprised and pleased. "Everyone likes her. She's impossible not to like. She gets that from you. I'm extremely unlikable. I spent 50 years frozen because people didn't know what to do with me. You spent 50 years frozen because you saved a child, and our people didn't know how to process that act." Liara pulled him close. "There's a difference." M was 10 when Jack started feeling the effects of his prolonged suspension. It started small, moments of confusion, words that wouldn't come, memories that felt slippery and uncertain. The healers examined him thoroughly. "The preservation process kept you alive," the lead healer explained. "But it wasn't perfect. There's cumulative neural damage. Slowly progressive. We can't reverse it." "How long?" Jack asked. "Years, maybe decades. The progression is slow and unpredictable." The healer's expression was sympathetic. But eventually your memories will fade. Your cognitive function will decline. I'm sorry. Jack absorbed this, nodded, thanked the healer. He told Liara that night after M was asleep. She took it quietly, then grabbed him and held on tight enough to hurt. Not fair, she whispered. We finally have time, and it's going to be stolen away. We knew I was borrowed time, Jack said. 50 years frozen should have killed me. Every day since then has been a gift. A gift I'm not ready to lose. You won't lose me. Not for a long time yet. He pulled back to look at her. And when it happens, when I start forgetting things, you'll remind me. You'll tell me our story. You'll help me hold on as long as possible. I promise, her voice was fierce. I'll remind you every day if I have to. I won't let you forget who you are. The decline was indeed slow. For years, Jack functioned normally, teaching M, consulting on projects, living fully. But gradually the gaps appeared. Names he couldn't recall, events that seemed hazy, moments where he'd lose track of conversations. M noticed, started writing things down for him, created memory journals with pictures and stories, helped him remember without making him feel diminished. Today we went to the market, she'd write. You bought me sweet fruit and told me the story about the first time you tried it and thought it was poisonous because it's so sour. Today, Mommy made that stew you like. You said it reminded you of something from Earth but couldn't remember what. Today you taught me about sedimentary layers. You remembered everything perfectly and got excited when I understood the concept. Liara kept her promise. Every morning she'd tell him their story. The day they met, the 50 years she'd visited him, the battle, the kiss, M's birth. Every detail repeated until it became a ritual. Some days Jack remembered it all clearly. Other days he had to be reminded 3 times over breakfast. But he never forgot the essential truth. He was loved, and he had loved, and that was enough. When M was 16, Jack's condition worsened significantly. He forgot Liara's name for the first time, called her by his first wife's name. The hurt on her face, quickly hidden, nearly broke him. I'm sorry, he said, once he realized his mistake. I'm so sorry, I can't, it's all right. Her voice was steady even as tears streaked her face. It's not your fault. But it happened more often. Some days he'd wake confused about where he was. Other days he'd ask for M when she was standing right in front of him. The gaps grew wider, the moments of clarity shorter. The healers recommended full-time care. Jack refused. I'm staying home, Monmin, he said during one of his clear periods. I'm not spending my last years in some facility. I want to be here with my family for as long as I have. Liara and M took turns caring for him. Queen Aya sent additional help, healers who stayed in the guest house, ready when needed but respecting the family's privacy. On good days, Jack would sit in the garden with M, teaching her geology like he always had. She'd bring him samples, rocks from the hillside, crystals from the river, and he'd analyze them with his old precision, memory, and expertise still intact in those moments. On bad days, he'd forget who she was, look at her with confused eyes and ask, Where's my daughter? I'm right here, Papa, M would say gently, taking his hand. No, Emily, my little girl. She had a silver dress. I'm Emily, M, your daughter with Liara. Sometimes that would click, sometimes it wouldn't. M learned to ride the confusion without letting it hurt her, or at least without showing that it hurt. But Liara saw. Late at night, after Jack was asleep, she'd find M crying quietly in her room. I hate this, M whispered one night when Liara came to hold her. I hate watching him disappear piece by piece. I hate that he looks at me like I'm a stranger. He's still in there, Liara said, though her own voice was tight with grief. The man who ran down a ridge to save a child he didn't know. The man who woke up after 50 years and immediately tried to help. That person doesn't go away. He's just harder to reach. What if we lose him completely? Then we remember him. Liara kissed her daughter's head. We tell his story. We live the way he taught us to live. That's how people survive beyond their bodies, through the changes they make in others. Jack's moments of clarity became rare and precious. But one evening, nearly a year into his decline, he woke from a nap with his eyes clear and focused. Liara, he said, her actual name. Present tense. She was beside him immediately, taking his hand. I'm here. I need to tell you something while I can. His words came slowly but deliberately. I don't regret any of it. The poison, the 50 years, the confusion now. All of it led to you and Em and this life. If I could go back and choose differently, choose to stay in my survey station that day, safe and uninvolved, I wouldn't. I'd run down that ridge again. Every time. Liara's tears fell freely now. You saved more than Aya that day. You saved me too. From becoming someone I would have hated. You saved me right back. Jack lifted his hand, shaking but sure, to her face. From spending eternity frozen and alone. You visited me, talked to me, made me feel human even when I couldn't respond. That mattered. It still matters. I love you, Liara said. I need you to remember that, even when you forget everything else. I love you. I know, Jack smiled, that warm, gentle smile that had first appeared when he held newborn Em. I feel it even when I can't name it. Whenever you're near, there's warmth, safety, home. Even if I forget the words, I remember that feeling. They sat together until he drifted back to sleep. When Em came home from her studies at the academy, she was training as both a diplomat and a geologist. Blending her parents' skills, Liara told her about the conversation. He's still Papa, Em said, relief flooding her features. He's still in there. He is, Liara agreed, just visiting us from further away. The day came 2 years later when Jack didn't wake up. Not dead. The healers confirmed his breathing, his heartbeat, all still functioning, but unconscious, unreachable, as if he'd slipped back into suspension without the preservation technology. His brain is shutting down, the lead healer explained gently. Self-protective measure against the cumulative damage. He's not in pain. He's just elsewhere. How long, Em asked. She was 18 now, standing straight and strong beside her mother. Days, maybe weeks. There's no way to know. Liara nodded, dismissed the healers, pulled a chair beside Jack's bed and took his hand. I'll stay with you, she said quietly. Like you stayed for me, frozen and patient. I'll be here when you're ready to go. Em brought her memory journals, read them aloud, every story, every moment, their entire shared history. Jack's face remained peaceful, unreactive, but they read anyway. For him, for themselves, for the record of a life lived fully despite impossible circumstances. Queen Aya came, sat with them, held Jack's other hand. He gave me 70 years, she said softly. She was an old woman now, elegant and wise. 70 years I wouldn't have had, a kingdom I never would have ruled, children and grandchildren who never would have existed, all because a geologist from Earth saw a child and ran. He saw his daughter, Liara said. He ran for Emily. He ran for both of us. Aya kissed Jack's forehead. Thank you, sleeping protector, for everything. She left them alone. Mother, daughter, and the fading man who'd brought them into existence. 3 days later, as dawn broke over the hills, Jack took a final breath, then stillness. Liara felt the moment his hand relaxed in hers, the subtle shift from sleep to absence. She didn't cry, not yet, just sat there holding him, memorizing the weight of his hand, the lines of his face, the reality of him before it became only memory. Papa, Em whispered. Her voice broke. He's free now, Liara said. No more confusion, no more pain, just peace. I'm not ready, Em said. I thought I was, but I'm not. Neither am I. Liara pulled her daughter close. We never are. They held each other as the sun rose, two people shaped by a man who'd been too stubborn to let death take him the first time, but couldn't outrun it forever. The funeral was held in the rebuilt Hall of Ancestors, near the memorial that bore his name. Hundreds came, thousands, people from every province, some old enough to remember the day he saved the young princess, others who only knew the stories. They lined the streets as the procession passed. Some threw flowers, others simply bowed their heads. Liara walked behind the bier, Em on one side, Queen Aya on the other. Her eyes were dry. She'd done her crying in private in the days after his death. Now was for ceremony, for public grief and public remembrance. The ceremony was simple. Queen Aya spoke of sacrifice and courage. A representative from the Geological Society spoke of Jack's contributions to understanding their world's resources. A child from M's old school read a poem about the sleeping protector who woke to save them one more time. Then M stepped forward. She'd written her own speech, refused to let anyone review it beforehand. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. No trembling, no hesitation. My father was a geologist, she said, a scientist, a man who studied rocks and minerals and the structure of planetary formation. He wasn't a warrior, wasn't trained for combat, wasn't prepared for heroism. She paused. But he was a father, and fathers run toward danger when their children are threatened. They don't think. They don't calculate odds. They just act. She looked at the memorial statue, the figure with arms outstretched, protecting. He ran twice, once for a child he'd never met but saw his daughter in. Once for a kingdom that wasn't his, but had become his home. Both times he knew it might kill him. Both times he ran anyway. Her voice softened. That's not destiny. It's not fate or prophecy or divine intervention. It's choice. The choice to act when action is needed, regardless of cost. She turned to face the crowd. My father spent 50 years frozen because of that choice. Spent his last years forgetting his own name because his biology couldn't recover from what he sacrificed. And he told my mother during one of his last clear moments that he didn't regret it, that he'd make the same choice again. She smiled, sad but genuine. That's the kind of person he was. That's the kind of person I'm going to try to be. She stepped back. The hall was silent except for quiet weeping. Liara reached for her daughter's hand, squeezed once, proud beyond words. The ceremony ended. They interred Jack's body in a place of honor, not in the Hall of Ancestors itself, but in the garden outside, where he could rest under open sky. His marker was simple. Jack Raiden, father, protector, friend. He ran toward danger twice so others might live. As the crowd dispersed, Liara and M remained behind. Just the two of them, standing over fresh earth and a life completed. What do we do now? M asked quietly. We live. Liara looked at her daughter, this impossible, beautiful blend of two worlds. We honor his memory by living the way he taught us, with courage, with kindness, with the willingness to act when action is needed. I'm scared I'll forget him. Forget what he sounded like, how he smiled. You won't forget. Liara pulled out the small recording device, the one with Emily's voice, all those years ago. And even if details fade, we have this. We have the journals. We have each other. Memory survives in many forms. M nodded, wiped her eyes, started to turn away. Then she paused, looked back at the grave. Thank you, Papa, she whispered, for everything. Life continued its forward march. M completed her training, joined the diplomatic corps, where her unique perspective, neither fully Kale nor fully human, but proudly both, made her invaluable in navigating complex negotiations. She mediated disputes, brokered peace agreements, helped integrate the formerly rebellious provinces back into the kingdom structure. She met someone, a Kyle woman named Thera, brilliant and kind, who loved M's hybrid nature rather than tolerating it. They married in a small ceremony in the hills near Jack's grave. Liara watched her daughter exchange vows and thought about Jack, wishing he could see this. But maybe he could. Maybe consciousness persisted in ways they didn't understand. Maybe somewhere, somehow, Jack Raiden knew his daughter was happy. Liara stayed in the house in the hills, taught at the academy, mentored young warriors, wrote tactical manuals that became standard curriculum. She visited Jack's grave every morning, told him about her day, about M's accomplishments, about the small joys and challenges of life. The kingdom is stable, she said one morning, sitting beside his marker. Xander died in prison last year. Natural causes. His movement died with him. Aya says it's the longest period of peace in 5 generations. She paused. You did that. Your choice, running down that ridge, it didn't just save one child. It saved the future. The wind moved through the garden. Liara chose to interpret it as acknowledgement. Em is pregnant, she continued, due in 6 months. She wants to name the baby Jack if it's a boy, Raiden if it's a girl. She smiled. Either way, your name continues. Your legacy lives. She sat there as the sun climbed higher, remembering. The first time she'd seen him, diving toward Aya with crossbow bolts in the air. The 50 years of vigil talking to a frozen man who became her confessor and her conscience. The kiss amid battle smoke, the family they'd built from impossible circumstances. "I miss you," she said simply. "Every day, every moment. But I'm grateful too. Grateful we had the time we had. Grateful you chose to stay even when it was hard. Grateful for M, for the peace, for all of it." She stood slowly. She was old now, joints stiff, hair completely silver. Touched the marker gently. "Sleep well, Kainash. I'll see you again someday." The years turned. M's child was born, a boy named Jack. He had his mother's hybrid features and his grandfather's curiosity. Grew up hearing stories of the twice guardian, the sleeping protector, the man who'd changed history by running toward danger. More children followed. The hybrid population grew, small but stable, each child a bridge between species, a living symbol of what connection and courage could create. Queen Aya eventually passed, succeeded by her daughter, who was succeeded by her son. The kingdom evolved, technology advancing, society changing. But the story of Jack Raiden remained constant, told in schools, commemorated in ceremonies, referenced in debates about courage and sacrifice. Liara lived to see her great-grandchildren, lived long enough to watch the kingdom she'd spent her life protecting transform into something her younger self wouldn't recognize. More peaceful, more integrated, more open. On her last day, she asked to be taken to the garden. They carried her there. She was too weak to walk, and positioned her chair beside Jack's marker. Her family gathered around. M, now gray-haired and distinguished. M's children and their children. Representatives from the Queen's court. Former students. Friends. "Thank you for coming," Liara said. Her voice was thin but clear. "I don't have any grand wisdom to impart. Just this. Choose courage. When the moment comes, and it will come, for all of you, choose to act. Choose to protect. Choose to care, even when it costs you." She looked at the marker beside her. "That's what he taught me. That's what I'm passing to you." M knelt beside her mother's chair, taking her hand. "I love you, Mama. I love you too, little one. You've made me so proud." Liara looked around at all the faces. Family, friends, legacy. "I'm ready now. I've lived well. I've loved fully. It's enough." She closed her eyes, took a breath, released it slowly, then stillness. M held her mother's hand and cried, not bitter tears, but tears of gratitude. Gratitude for time, for love, for a life well lived. They buried Liara beside Jack, two markers side by side in the garden, under open sky. The inscriptions matched. Lyra Vex Nathar, warrior, teacher, mother. She learned courage from a stranger and taught it to a kingdom. Jack Raiden, father, protector, friend. He ran toward danger twice, so others might live, and below both. Added by M. Herself, together again centuries passed. The kingdom grew into an interstellar civilization. Humanity made contact, established formal relations. The story of Jack Raiden, the geologist who became a legend, spread to other worlds. Historians studied him. Artists immortalized him. Children across multiple planets learned his name. But in the garden in the hills, where two markers stood side by side, the story was simpler. A man ran toward danger to save a child. A woman learned to forgive herself and accept help. Together they built a life, a family, a future. It wasn't destiny, it wasn't prophecy, it was choice. The choice to act when action was needed, to love when love was difficult, to persist when persistence seemed impossible. And that choice, made in a single moment on a sun-bleached plateau, rippled forward through time. Through Aya's 70-year reign, through M's diplomatic achievements, through generations of children who carried hybrid DNA and hybrid wisdom, through a civilization that learned to honor sacrifice without demanding it, to celebrate courage without weaponizing it. On the markers, where morning sun touched the engraved letters, condensation formed and dripped, tiny droplets that caught the light like tears or like the poison that had frozen a man outside of time. The garden was peaceful. The markers stood together, unmoving but not alone. And in that silence there was understanding. Dishonor had never been about being saved by a human. Dishonor would have been forgetting what humanity, in all its forms, all its species, all its expressions, truly meant. To see someone suffering and act, to recognize connection across difference, to run toward danger when every instinct screams to run away. That was the lesson Jack Radin had taught, frozen in suspension, then frozen in memory, but never truly frozen at all. He lived in every choice his daughter made, in every peace treaty she negotiated, in every hybrid child born into a world that accepted them, in every person who, when faced with someone in danger, remembered a story about a geologist and a princess and a single moment of impossible courage. The sun climbed higher. The garden bloomed. Life continued its forward march, carrying the weight of the past while reaching toward an unknown future. And two markers stood together in the hills, holding space for a love that had survived poison, time, and death itself.